Well, I hope not. I offer info, testimonies, and my opinions. As said, I urge you to research and form your own opinions. Get out there, wow us all, and discover the truth of the Loch Ness Monster. And by the way, stick to the truth. Nothing but truth. That said, let's get on with witness reports. Well, most famous. Well, I think so. Tim Dinsdale. Google him. Briefly. Well, he saw a hump from an elevated position on the shore, started filming as it surged away to the opposite shore, left turned, progressed not far from that shoreline, then submerged. Best analyzers were Jarek. Official military source. Conclusion was, probably animate. Yes, probably. So what do I say, having seen it and listened to both sides of opinions? Well, I am going to hark back to my 1988 trip. I was near Urquhart Castle when I noticed something like a hump at roughly the same range. Lifted my cam. Yes, it was the hump. And then I pressed the auto zoom button. And yes, it was a friggin' boat, moving away as well. For all the world, if I hadn't had the zoom, I too may have convinced myself that I was Dinsdale Mark II. However, this is, and always was, a search for the true Nessie by me, and nothing short. So I make no fancy claims. So what do I think of Tim Dinsdale? Well, as I just pointed out, you can be tricked without realizing things. Do I believe him? Yes, I do. Do I believe his testimony? Yes, but only as he recognized it. Do I believe the footage depicts Nessie? Not so sure. I mean, can you blame me? Without modern tech, we would have many Dinsdale-like films. Right, so previously I gave my salute to these guys making fanciful claims. Well, no more Mr. Nice Guy. It gets short and even brutal. Okay, so Hugh Gray. It's a photo of a grey hump with a snaky neck thing, head in the water. Once again, I will refer to the Great Orme Book. There was a plate, that's an old term for picture nowadays, of that said photo. As a junior export clerk, I would spend my lunch breaks staring at these photos. You know, I'd swear this photo even had front paddles lined in. Don't blame Holiday. Nah, publishers wanted books sold. So what do I think? Most definitely a dog, his dog's head. Advantage of old cams. Just claim anything you want to. I can guess what you're wondering. Heck, Lex. What of the surgeon's photo? Well, for starters, it was not even his photo. That's if we are to believe the hoax claim. But it is true to say, a dead man cannot defend himself, so steady on. You know, it's on the cover of the Orme of Loch Ness, sort of a stylized version. Used to wonder how it could be 5 foot tall. Waves look too small. You know, there is a second photo, not spoke of these days. I suppose it doesn't fit the current narrative. It's the trend these days. It's called cancel culture. If it does not fit your narrative, then just cancel it out. They are even doing it to Jesus Christ. God help us all. Next up, the Spicers. Mentioned them earlier. You know, the couple driving along. As said before, this as brief as I can, there is a lot of good stuff by other people giving more details. Research, research, research. My works cover things unmentioned elsewhere. So stay with me as well. I appreciate it. On we go. There have been a couple of sketchy land sightings. Yeah, sketchy. I am more confident that the Spicers really did witness something cross the road in front of them, way back in the 1930s, when it was a more narrow rural track than it is these days. You know, since they built that road around the loch, it's very unlikely that anyone will get such events. They did a drawing and gave verbal descriptions of what they saw. The main body was a bulbous grey mass, filling out the road. It sort of lumbered into view from the scrub, left to right, but not before its neck shot out, fluxing like a worm ahead of it. The road could not have been more than 12 feet wide or so, but most contentious was a baton-like object where its shoulder should have been. Swinging. George Spicer said it looked like a lamb. Anyways, it slid down into the loch. There are a few things I feel I should address here. Firstly, the baton-like object, because there is another very famous photo. Yeah, the Sandra Mancy photo. Heard of it? I am trying not to go off topic here. The Loch Ness Monster. Because Sandra Mancy, God rest her soul, took a famous photo and made the creature of Lake Champlain also a very famous cryptid. However, I have for some time contended that the Nessie photo does not show what she and others claim it shows. No, she was not a liar. Due respect to her, she is not with us now. However, I have read her account. She did see the head and neck. There was a lot of excited shouting while her husband got the camera. These things don't hang about while you fetch cameras. Heck no. So she turns with the cam and snaps a picture. So let me give you my take on what we see, delving deeper into this photo. So I am going to relate another eyewitness on Lake Champlain. Okay, this guy is out on the lake in a small boat. He sees an object, a mass, a distance away and heads out towards it. He claims it was Champ. However, this so-called Champ was resting on its side. I must say that I came across this account after I had already formed my theory of the Nessie photo, but it gives credence to my theory. So I believe that as she turned to snap the photo, it rolled sideways and up came the floppy paddle. There is a sort of joint lower down that necks do not have, and to the right is the head sideways with an eye just visible on the surface. Think about this. I mean, TikTok, amongst many other YouTube vids, have many people not realizing what they actually captured. One could contend that she was more successful than she thought. It really is not likely that anyone can normally get a photo of one of their paddles in the air. So how did she give the wrong testimony? Well, she didn't. She said, like Dinsdale and others, at the time, what they thought they photographed, split seconds between lifting the cam and the creature's movement, super fast movement sometimes, as I mentioned in the Robert Stack series and Ogopogo. Nonetheless, it's a real photo and in wildlife terms supremely successful and very inspiring. Back to the spices and to the point I am trying to make, and it's this: in a fleeting moment, a paddle seen edge on and moving in a manner that it would swim in may well look like a baton shape that's swinging. Do they come on land? Well, for those who believe they may be some sort of plesiosaur, and that may involve laying eggs to reproduce, then it's highly likely that, yes, they had to come on land, like turtles, to lay their eggs. A reasonable train of thought, yes. Well, there is no other way to go about these things. Consider also that the 20-foot object swimming in the shadow of a 40-footer was a female. In Arthur C. Clarke's documentary, A Breeding Pair. As I said before, in my first job at 16 years of age, I would read 2 books at lunchtime. One was The Great Orm of Loch Ness, and the second I got a bit later. It was Nessie, by Frank Searle, cringed at by current researchers. But as said before, he kept Nessie in the forefront, and did not pretend that fame and fortune was not part of his goals. Now all his photos are considered a load of cod's wallop. He did claim to witness a tiny Nessie, which is a coincidence, or maybe not. At school, a couple of years earlier, Mrs. Sutton, our retiring teacher, took her boat through Loch Ness and claimed she saw 2 of the same swimming in front of her boat on the way to Skye. There's the Lachlan Stewart fake, and then there's the Peter McNab photo. They say it's a fake, that is, it's a wake of a boat. Not so sure about that. There are modern dodgy ones, like the pretty obvious 3 seals swimming together, a grey hump taken from a boat. The guy is still active on the loch, but he is now a more serious watcher. You know, Nessie can have bragging rights around the loch. Then there's the Gordon Holmes footage. Excellent stuff. Very real. Could be anything. But hold on, guess what? Ran it on my laptop, then took a smartphone still. Try it. Not very scientific. Sent it to Adrian Shine by email. He thanked Gordon, Specsavers. So to the latest ones I find really interesting. Firstly, the YouTube channel Team Nessie. I congratulated them on the uploads, but inquired why no more vids. They told me they had violated the rule of Nessie Cam. Well, if uploading some of the best evidence of Nessie is wrong, then someone is more interested in money. That should come second, or not at all. So next up is the Kelly Chai photos. Well, the one I am referring to me, shows 2 heads. The top of them, the left eye of each, left nostril just above water to your left head smaller than the right one, maybe female, then a slightly bigger male, maybe juveniles. There are other photos of hers. So there are the long-term enthusiasts, let's call them that, eh? No disrespect intended, because it's hard to tell why they are still at the loch. Look, let's be honest, it's near impossible to disprove the non-existence of something. There is an Irish lake, they call them lochs, a small one. It had a strange creature. It dried up one time. Nothing there. Then the rains refilled it. Guess what? Sightings started up, with a witness daring to keep lying. Nah, I certainly don't think so. So, like I said, they maybe can bury under the mud or silt at the bottom till water comes or danger passes. So let's get back to the long-term Nessie watchers. Let's. Okay, Dick Rayner, well, he was part of the 60s Loch Ness project, an admirable effort by them all. However, for the time, they had some big lenses. Come on, Dick, did you join the I Wanna Be a Famous Nessie Hunter League? So he realizes now, after the surgeon's photo was deemed fake, that he had mistaken a flock of birds for Nessie. Nah, man. But tops for realizing they were birds. So Steve Feltham, hope he is still looking for Nessie. You know, for the time these guys spent there, we really should expect much more from them. Nessie cannot be smarter. Like I said, there must be a lot of bragging rights around the loch. Next up, Adrian Shine. The two gentlemen aforementioned also have something else in common with Adrian Shine. They all went there thinking, heck, this should be easy. Spend enough time there, the results come in. Then when there are no real results, Nessie becomes a large sturgeon in their heads. They become victims of the delusion they think Nessie eyewitnesses are suffering from. In the real world, the loch has had no evidence of any sturgeon being in its waters. It becomes a case of, if Nessie won't reveal herself to me, then she cannot be real. Now, Nessie is no god. But atheists think in very similar ways. The God delusion is an atheist delusion only. God is Jesus.